Chapter 861. Stop right there. Dahlia caught up to him and grabbed his arm. Do you have to be like this? Can't we have a decent talk? I don't think that's necessary. I'm wasting my breath. Not to mention, I'm busy. Let's not waste each other's time any longer, Dustin said with little interest and headed straight for the door. You're not allowed to leave. Dahlia suddenly hugged him from behind, holding him tightly. It was an extremely bold move coming from her, especially when she was usually aloof. I'm not letting you go. Still maintaining her tight grip, she rested her cheek on his back. She mumbled softly, consider me wrong this time, okay? I know I'm difficult sometimes, but I'll do my best to change. If you say Gavin is the bad guy, then he's the bad guy. I won't see him ever again, alright? I'm terrified of losing you. Let's get back together, please. I won't be stubborn anymore and won't hit you again. I swear. As long as you stay, I'll do anything you tell me to. I don't need wealth or power. I don't need everything I have now. Why don't we sell off the company and go on a trip? We don't need to care about anything. Let's just live a happy and carefree life together. That's enough for me. As long as you agree, I'll give up everything for you. Dahlia got more frantic the more she spoke. She had thought it through. It didn't matter who was right or wrong. Compared to wealth, having the person she loved the most next to her was the most important thing. She hoped to win his heart and grow old together with him. Dahlia, if you had said that 3 months ago, I would have agreed without hesitation. But it's too late now. Dustin shook his head and let out a soft sigh. What's done is done. Some things can never go back to how they used to be. I don't want to return to when my life revolved around you. I'm tired of trying to please you in every way. I don't want to keep worrying about you either, living every day in anxiety. It's too exhausting. I just want to live life my way without burden, finding satisfaction in settling old scores. We're over. With that, he pried her arms open, slowly but determinedly. Why? Why? If you're still angry with me, you can scold and hit me, but you can't just walk away. We're not over yet. We can still go back to how it used to be. I won't ever doubt you again, and I won't ever get mad at you again. Give me a chance to turn over a new leaf, please. Dahlia's eyes were red, and she choked on sobs. At this point, she was begging. In the past, when Dustin got mad, a little coaxing would suffice. But she felt his coldness and determination today. Her intuition told her that letting go today would be the end for them. She was terrified at the thought and was trying her best to make Dustin stay. Dahlia, just let go. Let's not torment each other anymore. Perhaps you'll meet someone better in the future, but we aren't meant for each other. Let's go our own ways. Goodbye. After he spoke, he broke free from her grip and walked out of the cafe. He left without looking back. It was time to let go. Dahlia's heart twisted in pain as she watched him leave. She burst into tears, sobbing uncontrollably. There's no one better. No one is better than you. You are the one I love the most. Chapter 862. Early the next morning, at Zephyr Lodge, Dustin sat on the rooftop and watched the sunrise. His expression was devoid of emotion. Since bidding farewell to Dahlia last night, he had been on the rooftop since midnight till the sun rose in the sky. His emotions gradually shifted from turmoil to calmness. After a night of deep contemplation, he found a newfound sense of acceptance and detachment. He would no longer be stuck in the Sir Rhys past. At that moment, Cornelius leaped onto the rooftop and reported, I've received news that the Jade Maiden scripture you are looking for has been located. Oh. Where is it? Dustin raised his eyebrow. A group of foreign merchants have it. We've contacted them, but they're unwilling to sell to us directly. They insist on meeting face to face, Cornelius replied. A face-to-face meeting. Dustin nodded. All right, go get Nikki. We'll go and have a look together. Yes, sir. After Cornelius replied, He jumped down the roof again. 1 hour later, a black executive car stopped at the entrance of auspicious restaurant. As the car doors opened, Dustin and his 2 companions stepped out. Hey. You didn't trick me, did you? Is the Jade Maiden scripture here? Nikki looked at the restaurant, evidently skeptical. Why would I lie to you for no reason? If you don't believe me, then let's just go back. Dustin turned around, about to get back into the car. Hey. All right, I trust you. Are you happy now? Nikki grabbed him and grumbled, come on, seriously. You're a grown man. How could I react so stingily? You're worse than a woman. Are you going in or not? Dustin asked impatiently. Yes. Of course, I'm going. Nikki repeatedly nodded, pulling Dustin inside with haste. The Jade Maiden scripture was a precious treasure of theirs and a crucial factor in helping Edith make a breakthrough. Therefore, no matter the cost, she had to get her hands on it. The 3 of them entered the restaurant. After identifying themselves, a waiter led them to the 2nd floor before finally stopping in front of a luxurious private room. They knocked, and the doors opened. Upon entering, Dustin and his companions saw a chubby, middle-aged man seated in the main seat. The man had a cleanly shaved head and a gentle look. He reminded them of a priest, exuding an indescribable sense of comfort and familiarity. Meanwhile, 2 bodyguards wearing sunglasses stood behind him. Oh. My esteemed guests have arrived. Please, take a seat. When the chubby man saw Dustin and his companions, he stood up to welcome them. He had a warm and enthusiastic smile. Who are you? Do we know you? Nikki narrowed her eyes, feeling cautious. My name is Samuel Franklin. I'm new here. Our meeting today is surely fated. It would be my pleasure to befriend you all, the chubby man said with a warm smile. No need for the pleasantries. Let's get straight to the point. We heard you have the Jade Maiden scripture. Is that true? Nikki cut to the chase. Of course, it's true, Samuel answered, smiling. Oh. Well, then, let me first have a look. Nikki's interest was piqued. There's no need to hurry. Please, have a seat and enjoy a cup of tea. We can take a look in a little while. Samuel poured 3 cups of tea and passed them to Dustin, Nikki, and Cornelius. I'm not interested in your tea. Just name your price. Nikki urged. With her hot-tempered behavior, she had no patience for beating around the bush or engaging in unnecessary formalities. Even when it came to movies, she preferred the simplistic, rough-styled movies Artea produced than the drawn-out, sluggish movies Kimboku made. Dear guests, please be patient. I can't name you a price yet as a few more buyers have yet to arrive, Samuel said with a smile. More buyers are arriving. Chapter 863. Nikki frowned. What do you mean? You're not selling it directly to us. Recently, I've received many inquiries about the Jade Maiden scripture. I was in a difficult position and was unable to make a decision. That was why I gathered everyone here to discuss the price collectively. It would be fairer this way, Samuel explained. Fair. Dustin shook his head with a smile. Mr. Franklin, you have a gift for words. You're raising the price without reason yet making it sound sophisticated. Gathering all the buyers to discuss the price collectively was an obvious attempt to start a bidding war. That way, the price of the Jade Maiden scripture would surge dramatically. It was a cunning strategy indeed. You flatter me, mister. I'm a humble merchant who hopes to earn a little extra profit. Samuel continued to smile even when his plan was exposed. He was good at maintaining his composure. HMPH. I hate people like you the most. Nikki looked at him contemptuously. Why couldn't he just name a price? Those who could afford it would pay, while those who couldn't could just leave. It would have been a much simpler approach. It was such a waste of time to resort to such ways. While they were enjoying their tea, the private room door swung open again. Then, a man with a golden mask entered with confident strides. It seems like another esteemed guest has arrived. Please, take a seat. Samuel remained hospitable and stood up to welcome him. The man in the golden mask nodded. He was about to sit down when he noticed Dustin. Instantly, he took a few steps backward and exclaimed in shock, What are you doing here? Do I know you? Dustin asked with doubt. The man in the golden mask gulped and realized he had lost his cool. He put on a calm front and said impassively, My apologies. I mistook you for someone else just now. The heck? You scared me. Nikki was upset. He looked like he had seen a ghost as soon as he walked in. Was that necessary? The man in the mask took a deep breath and calmly sat. However, he occasionally glanced at Dustin with resentment. As time passed, a few more buyers entered the room. Men and women were present, dressed in luxury, and carried themselves well. They were far from ordinary individuals. Hey, most of the buyers have arrived. Can we start now? Nikki was getting impatient after waiting for so long. Please be patient, miss. We are missing one last person. With a gentle smile, Samuel refilled their tea, being courteous throughout. Who's running late? Will we sit here all day if he doesn't show up? Nikki frowned. What are you rushing me for? I'm here. Just then, a well-dressed young scion strolled in. He was accompanied by a few arrogant women who were all dolled up. The young scion was none other than Julian Nicholson. Who the fuck was rushing me just now? If you don't like waiting, then get the hell out. Julian held his head high, looking arrogant. Hey. Do you want to get beaten up? Nikki slammed the table angrily as she stood up, her expression icy. Are you trying to pick a fight with me? Who the fuck do you think you are? You're asking for trouble. Julian responded to Nikki in disdain. She's asking for trouble, but what if I join in? Dustin stood up slowly, asking with a sneer. What? Julian took a closer look and was shocked. It's you. What? Are you surprised? Dustin's gaze was hostile. I haven't had the chance to get revenge when you put me in jail. Now that we've crossed paths today, don't you think it's time to settle the score? Chapter 864. Hey. I'm warning you, don't mess with me. Julian took a few quick steps back in fear when he saw Dustin's threatening posture. He hadn't brought any bodyguards today. Only a few pretty women came with him. It would be difficult for him to handle such a reckless fellow alone. Fellow guests. Please, calm down. Samuel noticed the tension in the air. He mediated the situation with a smile. We've gathered here today for serious business. Let's not spoil the mood. Whatever it is, we can discuss things calmly while seated. All right. Since Mr. Franklin has spoken up, I'll respect that. Dustin nodded and settled back into his seat. Since they came for the Jade Maiden scripture, it was inappropriate to fight now. He could deal with someone like Julian anytime he wanted, anyway. HMPH. And here I thought you had the guts. But it seems like you're all bark. Julian sneered. He assumed Dustin was hesitant to act because of his identity. You dress up so shabbily, and yet you dared challenge Mr. Nicholson. Don't flatter yourself. The haughty women with Julian looked at Dustin with disdain. All right, since our esteemed guests have arrived, let's begin. With everyone seated, Samuel proceeded without delay and gestured. Soon, a bodyguard opened a safe nearby and retrieved a delicately crafted wooden box. Upon opening the wooden box, an ancient sheepskin scripture was inside. 3 unmistakable words were on the cover: Jade Maiden Scripture. It is the Jade Maiden Scripture. Everyone's eyes lit up. Nikki, especially, was so excited that her breathing grew rapidly. She couldn't believe that it was real. It would have been a lie to say she didn't have doubts about coming here, but it was a delightful surprise. Fellow guests, getting my hands on this treasure wasn't easy. Samuel pointed at Jade Maiden Scripture. He said confidently, I believe you should know that the Jade Maiden Scripture is ancient and long-lost knowledge with many secrets. Those who practice the ways of the Jade Maiden Scripture will not only improve their skills, They will also live longer and maintain eternal youth. As soon as they heard those words, everyone grew excited. Especially the group of women who could not hide the greedy expressions. They weren't interested in the prospect of greatly enhanced skills. They cared about the promise of long life and eternal youth. Every woman cared about their looks and desired to maintain a youthful look. Mr. Nicholson, you must not let the treasure fall into someone else's hands. We must take it home. The haughty women were excited as their eyes burned with hunger. Don't worry. No one will dare take it from us as long as I am here. No one has the power to do so either. Julian raised his head, looking confident. I wonder if Miranda will be happy if I give this treasure to her as a gift, the man in the golden mask murmured to himself. Name a price. I'm taking it home with me. Nikki was impatient. Its value is not up to me but to you, my fellow guests. Whatever you suggest, the price will be the price. Samuel smiled faintly and reflected the question to them. You're letting me decide the value of it. All right, I'll pay 10 million. Julian raised his index finger, taking the lead. HMPH. What's a measly 10 million? I'll pay 50 million for it. 50 million for the Jade Maiden scripture. You must be dreaming. I'll pay 100 million. 200 million here. Within a minute, the price of the Jade Maiden scripture broke through the 100 million mark. Everyone knew ancient and long-lost knowledge like the Jade Maiden scripture was priceless. It couldn't be bought with just money. Today, their wealth would determine who takes the treasure home. I'm offering 1 billion. With gritted teeth, Nikki raised the price. Immediately, the voices hushed down. Chapter 865. Everyone glanced at Nikki, sizing her up. HMPH. Do you think 1 billion is impressive? I'll pay 1.5 billion. Julian raised the bid again. The Nicholsons may not have much of anything else, but they certainly had a lot of money. Not to mention, recently, he was in luck and earned a few billions. He had so much money now that he didn't know how to spend it. 2 billion. Nikki would not let up. The Jade Maiden Sisterhood had a budget of around 5 billion. As long as she could get the Jade Maiden scroll, spending it all wasn't a problem. My. Are you challenging me? I'm curious to see what you're capable of. 3 billion. Julian thundered with confidence. When he raised the price, several buyers gave up and left. Although the Jade Maiden scripture was a precious treasure, it came with a major limitation. It was only useful for women. While spending a few hundred million to please their lover wasn't an issue, a few billion wasn't worth it. Nikki, how much can your guild afford to pay? Dustin asked suddenly. About 5 billion, why? Nikki raised an eyebrow. All right, sounds good. Dustin nodded. He raised his hand. We'll pay 5 billion. What? Many were shocked when they heard the amount. Did they think 5 billion could fall from the sky? That's crazy. Who raises the price like that? I'm done playing. What's this nonsense of adding 2 billion in one go? Following the muttered complaints, several buyers left the room. HMPH. Let's see how long you can keep up with your arrogance. The man behind the mask stood up and left, his gaze filled with resentment. However, he didn't leave immediately. Instead, he found a secluded corner and made a call. Hello, Miranda, I've spotted that guy. This time, we mustn't let him get away. Meanwhile, back inside the private room on the second floor. As soon as they heard those words, everyone grew excited. Especially the group of women who could not hide the greedy expressions. They weren't interested in the prospect of greatly enhanced skills. They cared about the promise of long life and eternal youth. Every woman cared about their looks and desired to maintain a youthful look. Mr. Nicholson, you must not let the treasure fall into someone else's hands. We must take it home. The haughty women were excited as their eyes burned with hunger. Don't worry. No one will dare take it from us as long as I am here. No one has the power to do so either. Julian raised his head, looking confident. I wonder if Miranda will be happy if I give this treasure to her as a gift, the man in the golden mask murmured to himself. Name a price. I'm taking it home with me. Nikki was impatient. Its value is not up to me but to you, my fellow guests. Whatever you suggest, the price will be the price. Samuel smiled faintly and reflected the question to them. You're letting me decide the value of it. All right, I'll pay 10 million. Julian raised his index finger, taking the lead. HMPH. What's a measly 10 million? I'll pay 50 million for it. 50 million for the Jade Maiden scripture. You must be dreaming. I'll pay 100 million. 200 million here. Within a minute, the price of the Jade Maiden scripture broke through the 100 million mark. Everyone knew ancient and long-lost knowledge like the Jade Maiden scripture was priceless. It couldn't be bought with just money. Today, their wealth would determine who takes the treasure home. I'm offering 1 billion. With gritted teeth, Nikki raised the price. Immediately, the voices hushed down. Chapter 866. Nikki was livid and glowered at Julian. She clenched her fists, almost losing her cool. While Dustin remained indifferent, it was like he was staring at a fool. Kid, get lost if you don't have the money. What are you standing around for? Waiting for someone to donate it to you. Julian mocked. HMPH. You're humiliating yourself by going up against Mr. Nicholson. It's embarrassing that you don't have 10 billion. The haughty women spoke out, and they looked at Nikki with disdain. It was as if money was just a number to them. All of you are too much. Nikki seethed in anger and turned to Dustin. She asked him, Dustin, how much money do you have? Lend it all to me. I will get the Jade Maiden scripture today no matter what. I'm going to crush this guy's arrogance thoroughly. Money. Dustin patted his pockets, then shook his head. Sorry, I didn't bring any money. How about you, Cornelius? Me neither. Cornelius spread his hands out. He only had a few pennies to his name. No way, you own a whole man but don't have any money. Nikki frowned, skeptical. I don't have any money. I have a lot of mouths to feed in my organization. I need money to run the gang, you know. Where would I get so much money in such a short time? Dustin expressed his helplessness. He did have the money. He was just unwilling to lend it to Nikki. After all, why spend money if they could get the item for free? Then what should we do now? Are we going to just hand over the Jade Maiden scripture? Nikki was getting anxious. It was the Jade Maiden Sisterhood's precious treasure. It was also important for the guild's growth. It was with great difficulty that she finally found a lead. How could she let it slip away? Someone else's hands. Hey, beautiful. You want this scripture, don't you? Julian suddenly teased. How about this? Why don't you follow me home and please me? You'll get everything you want. It's better than sticking with this poor guy, don't you think? Get lost. Nikki glared at him. She would never sell her body. Beautiful. Opportunities like this won't come twice. This is a rare chance. Julian rubbed his chin. He was attracted to her heroic spirit. Having been accustomed to more gentle ladies, sleeping with a dominant woman had a unique appeal. If you speak one more word, I'll beat the crap out of you. Nikki seethed in anger. Hey. Why are you so dense? You should feel lucky that Mr. Nicholson has taken a liking to you. Don't be ungrateful. That's right. With his status, you should feel honored to serve him. HMPH. What the hell? It's so disgusting that she's acting all high and mighty. The haughty women scoffed one after the other. It was a rare opportunity that others could only dream of, yet she dared to reject him. She was stupid. Julian waved his hand dismissively as if generously letting her off the hook. Never mind. Let's not force her if she's unwilling. He turned to Samuel. Mr. Franklin, I have the highest bid here. The Jade Maiden scripture should belong to me now, right? Of course. Samuel nodded with a smile. Julian spared the formalities and concluded the transaction. His extravagant manner of spending money dazzled the haughty women. They struck seductive poses and flirted with Julian. Kid, I'm taking this baby home. You can go home and eat dirt. Ha ha ha. Waving the wood box that contained the scripture, Julian chuckled heartily. He was about to leave with his female companions when suddenly, the door opened. A few masked men walked in fiercely. Who's Julian Nicholson? The leader of the masked men demanded loudly. What the fuck? How dare you call out to me impolitely? You must be asking for death. Chapter 867. Julian glared at the masked men, displeased with them. In public, everyone always addressed him as Mr. Nicholson. The audacity of these masked men to address him familiarly by his first name. So, you're Julian Nicholson. After the masked man confirmed his target, his gaze turned cold. The next thing they knew, the masked man lunged at Julian with a knife. The sharp blade sliced into Julian's abdomen, leaving Julian in shock. His eyes widened in disbelief. What on earth was going on? The masked man must be out of his mind to attack him without a word. Ah! Julian screamed in pain. He staggered back, clutching his wound. He was terrified. Who are you? Your executioner. The masked men approached Julian murderously. I've done nothing to offend you. Why do you want to kill me? Julian broke out in cold sweat as panic overtook him. I was paid to kill you. It serves you right for offending Mr. Huffner. The leader of the masked men thundered. I don't know any Preston Huffner. You must be mistaken. Julian was taken aback. HMPH. Are you still pretending? Mr. Huffner is from Asclepia. You disfigured him outside of Stoneray Valley not long ago. Have you forgotten already? The leader of the masked men had a cold gaze. I don't know who Preston Huffner is. You must have gotten the wrong person. Julian was close to tears. Where did these crazy people come from? Why were they trying to kill him without getting the situation straight? Cut the crap. You must die today for offending Mr. Huffner. The masked men sneered and lunged at Julian. Hold it right there. One of the haughty women stood in front of him and blocked his way. She protested. You bastards. Do you know who Mr. Nicholson is? Do you know him? Background. If you dare to. Before she could finish, the masked man had slashed her to death. Blood sprayed across the table. It was a shocking sight. Ah! The other woman screamed in fear, distancing themselves from Julian. They were afraid of getting caught in the attack. Kill him. The masked men brandished their knives and started slashing at Julian. I don't know who Preston Huffner is. I didn't disfigure him. You guys are attacking the wrong person. Julian cowered and wailed as they continued slashing him. Very soon, he was covered in bloody cuts. Despite his pleas for mercy and explanations, the masked men attacked relentlessly. Preston Huffner. Dustin raised an eyebrow, a playful smile on his lips. He had casually mentioned Julian's name when he attacked Preston previously. He didn't expect it to cause the situation before him to happen. Save me. Suddenly, Julian, who was covered in blood, rushed toward Dustin. He begged by Dustin's feet. Please, save me. Save you. Since when were we friends? Dustin smiles cheekily. If you save me, I'll give you the Jade Maiden scripture. Julian spat out blood, then handed over the wooden box to Dustin. He knew Dustin was good at fighting. Only Dustin could save him now. All right. Since you've shown sincerity, I'll save you this once. Dustin nodded, receiving the wooden box. That's great. Julian lit up in joy. He then pointed at the masked men. Kill them. Don't misunderstand. I only said I'd save you. I never said I would kill for you. Dustin corrected him. What? What do you mean by that? Julian was dumbfounded. Mr. Adler, call Mr. Nicholson an ambulance immediately, Dustin instructed. An ambulance. You fuck. Julian was infuriated and was about to erupt in rage when the masked men lunged at him, killing him instantly. Chapter 868. Julian died a regretful death. After killing him, the masked men left without any words. Dustin, who was the reason for his death, got his revenge. Not only that, but he got jade. Maiden scripture that was worth 10 billion. It was worth celebrating. He guessed that the masked man who left earlier was Preston. Otherwise, he wouldn't have reacted like that when he saw Dustin. Congratulations to the three of you. Luck is on your side. Samuel clasped his hands, smiling as usual. Mr. Franklin, thanks to you, we got a great deal. Dustin returned the smile with a knowing look. Samuel had remained silent the entire time, evidently hoping Julian would meet his end so that he could reclaim the Jade Maiden scripture. It was a pity that it ended up in their hands instead. May I ask for your name? Samuel asked respectfully. Dustin Rhys. Mr. Rhys, you don't seem like an ordinary person, given your manner of speech. I hope we can work together again in the future. Samuel extended an olive branch. Dustin raised an eyebrow. How do you intend for us to work together, Mr. Franklin? I mainly specialize in gathering information and trading rare treasures. I can assist you if you need help in those areas. Samuel smiled. Is that so? I am facing two difficulties now. I wonder if you can give me an answer for them. Dustin flashed a smile. Please, go ahead. Samuel nodded his head. Firstly, I'd like to know who assassinated Paul Hill. Secondly, I'd like to know about the whereabouts of Chiuja. If you have any information on those, I'm willing to offer a high price, Dustin stated frankly. Samuel was not an ordinary man if he could locate the Jade Maiden scripture that quickly. For all they knew, they might find surprising information with his information network. Samuel smiled. I will look into your request, Mr. Rhys. I'll notify you immediately once I have news. Thank you. We'll be leaving now. Dustin nodded and left soon after. Ha ha ha. We got the Jade Maiden scripture without spending any money. This is fantastic. Nikki was excited on the way back. She had thought she was going to lose the treasure. The result came as a surprise. There seems to be something off about this scripture. Dustin was puzzled as he looked at the sheepskin scripture in his hands. He'd studied various ancient texts since he was young. He recognized the cultivation methods in the Jade Maiden scripture from a different book he'd read. Not to mention, he was extremely well versed in those teachings. However, that book wasn't called the Jade Maiden scripture. What caught his attention was that the contents of the scripture in his hands were incomplete. What's off about it? Could this treasure be fake? Nikki was taken aback and grew nervous. Dustin shook his head. It's not exactly fake, but rather, incomplete. Incomplete. Nikki frowned and took the sheepskin scripture from him. She carefully flipped through it and said, "Where's the missing part? It looks complete to me." Come on, don't just speak nonsense. It's not just the content that's incomplete. There's something wrong with the cover too. It seems like there's something hidden inside it. Why don't we open it up? Dustin rubbed his chin. The front and back covers of the scripture had different thicknesses. Though the difference was minor, he still noticed when he touched the scripture. Hey, I'm warning you not to mess around. Nikki hugged the sheepskin scripture protectively, close to her chest. This is the Jade Maiden Sisterhood's precious treasure. Will you be able to bear the responsibility if it is damaged? Chapter 869. I was just saying. You don't have to open it if you don't want to. Dustin shrugged. Although the Jade Maiden scripture was impressive, it was only suitable for women. It had no use for him. He was only interested to see it because of his curiosity. HMPH. Smart move. Nikki breathed a sigh of relief. It was embarrassing to admit, but it was thanks to Dustin that she could get her hands on the Jade Maiden scripture. When they returned, she would put in a good word for him with Madame Edith and ensure he was rewarded accordingly. 20 minutes later, the car stopped at the entrance of Zephyr Lodge. They had just exited the car when Brittany and a few disciples rushed up to them excitedly. Nikki, I heard you found the Jade Maiden scripture. Where is it? Let me see. Brittany was unable to hide the excitement on her face. It's right here, have a look. Nikki passed the box containing the Jade Maiden scripture to her. Brittany's excitement grew as she studied the scripture. It is the Jade Maiden scripture. This is great. Congratulations, Brittany. You found our treasure. The disciples behind her praised her. All of you had a hand in finding the scripture. Brittany said as she flipped through the scripture. She was thrilled. Brittany, we could only get our hands on it thanks to Dustin. Nikki attempted to give Dustin credit. Brittany swept a glance at Dustin. She looked at Dustin arrogantly. HMPH. You finally caved in. Have you finally realized you should be pleasing me? You men are always saying one thing but meaning another. Let me make it clear. My actions have nothing to do with you, Dustin clarified immediately. You're still being stubborn. Why would you be so enthusiastic about finding the scripture if you aren't in love with me? I've seen through you, so stop pretending. Brittany raised her head, looking proud. Dustin was rendered speechless. He wondered where her confidence came from. She could twist any situation to make it all about herself and speak as if it was a fact. Fine. Given that you went through all that trouble for me, I won't hold your past mistake against you anymore. Starting today, I'll allow you to be my fanboy, Brittany said in a naughty tone. Hey, what are you doing just standing there? Hurry up and thank her. You're lucky that you're getting a chance to please Brittany. You must cherish it. A few disciples crossed their arms, looking like Dustin had struck gold. Dustin rolled his eyes. He couldn't bother wasting his time with a bunch of lunatics. What's going on here? Just then, Edith strolled in with an old woman. Their proud demeanor made it seem like royalty was arriving. Madam Edith, you arrived just in time. We have good news. We found the Jade Maiden scripture. Brittany excitedly passed the sheepskin scripture to her. You found it. Madam Edith was astounded. She took a closer look. Instantly, her expression turned to joy. It is the Jade Maiden scripture. This is great. Who found it? I'll have to reward them handsomely. I found it, Madam Edith. I went through a lot of trouble to obtain this precious treasure. I didn't disappoint, did one? Brittany stepped up. She didn't hesitate to take all the credit. Nikki was stunned by her words. Chapter 870. Brittany. Nikki looked at her in disbelief. She couldn't believe Brittany would say something like that. All she did was greet them by the door, yet she had taken all the credit for herself. It was unfair, especially when Brittany didn't mention a word about their efforts. What? Dustin frowned slightly. Although he wasn't expecting to be acknowledged, it still annoyed him to be put in such a situation. You did great, Brittany. I knew you wouldn't disappoint. Edith nodded in gratitude. I'll remember your achievement. Once I've mastered the Jade Maiden scripture's teachings, I'll pass them on to you. Thank you, Madam Edith. Brittany lit up in joy. This was what she had been waiting for. There was nothing more valuable than being taught personally by her mentor. Brittany, I believe there's something you forgot to mention, Nikki reminded her. As a fellow disciple, she didn't mind not being rewarded. After all, they were all working for Madam Edith. However, Dustin had gone through all that trouble. She couldn't allow him to be treated unfairly. What? Did I say something wrong? Brittany gave her a warning glance. As a senior disciple, she intended to be the first to reap the benefits. So what if she stole credit? Who would dare challenge her? Brittany, Dustin was the one who found the Jade Maiden scripture. You shouldn't disregard his efforts, don't you think? Nikki frowned. What? Brittany's expression darkened. Save the nonsense, Nikki. I was the one who found it. You should think before you speak. You must have been mistaken. Brittany's words carried a hint of threat. I'm not mistaken. It was Dustin who found it. Nikki was firm. I saw it with my own eyes. Dustin was the one who found the scripture's whereabouts and helped us obtain it. The rest of the disciples looked at the two worriedly. It seemed like Nikki was challenging Brittany's authority. How dare you? Brittany glared at Nikki, enraged. Nikki hoarsed, "Are you questioning me?" Brittany roared, "I'm just speaking the truth." Nikki lowered her head slightly, but her gaze remained unyielding. "The truth. HMPH. You're just trying to undermine me." Brittany's expression soured. "We're guild members, and I can't believe you challenge me on behalf of an outsider." With her seniority in the guild, no one dared talk back to her, even when she was oppressive and unjust. She couldn't believe Nikki questioned her publicly and embarrassed her. Nikki should have known her place. "Brittany, don't you have a conscience? We can't just ignore it when Dustin helped us out," Nikki reasoned. "Shut up." Brittany's temper flared, and she slapped Nikki hard across the face. She screamed, "Who the hell do you think you are? How dare you lecture me? You." Nikki bit her lips, feeling wronged. Her face was swollen from the slap. Just then, Edith finally spoke up, "Enough. We're all members of the same guild. There's no need to argue about a small matter. Madam Edith, I'm telling the truth. Dustin handed the Jade Maiden scripture to me personally before I handed it to Brittany." Nikki tried to explain. "Do you have proof?" Edith asked, impassively. "The other disciples saw what happened. They can vouch for me." Nikki pointed at them. "Oh, is that so?" Edith looked over lazily at the other disciples. "Madam Edith is asking a question. All of you must answer truthfully." Brittany's expression was icy, and her gaze was hostile.